Can someone check if I'm in the frame right now?
You can move the thing around. It's not. Oh, there's cables there.
I'm in? Okay. Let's get everyone ready.
Okay.
Okay, we're all set? Alright, well, hi History Club. My name is Vincent Lagasse. Today, we're going to be discussing, behind me, the rise and fall of Nazi Germany, or the Third Reich. But first, we need to understand the background, which was their defeat in World War I. Germany and many other countries and the Central Powers, they lost the First World War, also known as the Great War, a war that killed over 40 million people. And after the loss, Germany and its military and economy was in shambles. During this time, in the 1920s, came the Treaty of Versailles, where members of the United States, France, and England meet in Versailles, France, to discuss a treaty to punish countries from the Central Powers, mostly Germany, as like, you know, what happened in World War I and their actions. And many Germans believed that the reason why Germany really lost was because Jewish soldiers who served in Germany, they believed that Germans, they were undefeated, but the Jews who served under their command, they deliberately lost the battles. This ultimately formed the Weimar Republic, which happened from 1919 to 1933. The main features of this country was a democratic constitution. This created the office of president and established equal rights for all citizens. It also had universal suffrage, where Germans, men and women, aged 20 and above, they were able to vote in elections. And they also had proportional representation, where there was a system of elections where, regardless of what party you represented, you were elected and you would serve in the Reichstag. But the Weimar Republic also had its fair share of challenges, as the aforementioned Treaty of Versailles, where Germany still had to pay for its war debt, as implemented by the Treaty of Versailles, which also caused hyperinflation. On top of that, political turmoil was a big issue too, because what happened was the democratic government, it was attacked on both sides, from the left and right, in the political aisle in Germany. And on top of that, until now, Germany never adopted a democratic system of government. Then we come to the rise of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party. In the early years, in 1919 to 1920, came the German Workers' Party after World War I, and that party was hostile towards the Weimar Republic. During that time, a German soldier named Adolf Hitler joined the party, and over time, he quickly rose to party leadership and transformed it into the far-right Nazi Party in 1920. The main ideology of this party was racism, anti-Semitism, totalitarianism, territorial expansion, and nationalism. During that time, 3 years later, we come to the Beer Hall Putsch between November 8th and 9th, 1923. On November 8th, Hitler, he gave a speech at a beer hall, and he declares that he is taking over the government, and he's going to try and take over Munich, Germany. The following day, November 9th, Hitler tried to rally supporters to his cause and a march towards Munich. Ultimately, the coup fell apart, and Adolf Hitler was imprisoned and was sentenced to 5 years in prison for treason. During that time, between 1923 and 1924, Hitler was in prison. Behind me, that's his cell, and he had luxury. He received letters, gifts, and visitors as well. And he was also writing his autobiography, Mein Kampf, meaning My Struggle in English. Hitler would only get out of prison 9 months later. Mein Kampf, which is Hitler's book, the content of the book was he accused the Jewish people for their defeat in World War I as promoting the Aryan race across Germany, and he also expanded anti-Semitism, Lebensraum, and rejection of democracy as well. The book was published on July 15th, 1925. The genre of the book was political manifesto and an autobiography. And the significance of the book is that it foreshadowed the Holocaust, a blueprint of Nazi policies, and a symbol of hate. Between 1925 and 1933, Adolf Hitler was once a nobody to a person thanks to his publication of Mein Kampf. He made popular speeches that resonated with the German people, and he positioned himself as the future of Germany. In 1932, during the German presidential elections, the political climate at the time was, in the 1930s, the German parliament of the Weimar Republic was collapsing, and the Nazis were getting support. The key candidates were German war hero and German president Paul von Hindenburg and Adolf Hitler. The outcome, President Hindenburg won, and Hitler got 37% of the vote. Following this, later in 1932, the Nazis were gaining more popularity in the Reichstag. In July of that same year, they won elections, again with 37% of the vote, and they became the largest party in Germany at that point. Eventually, after convincing, Hitler and the Nazis convinced President Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. And on January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany. Between May and October 1933, the Nazis came up with an idea of book burnings. Their idea was to take action against the non-German spirit. The authors and ideas they targeted were works by Helen Keller, Ernest Hemingway, Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, and Albert Einstein, and they rejected works that promoted democracy and socialism. And in Nazi propaganda, it promoted anti-intellectualism, anti-Semitism, racial nationalism, suppression of opposing ideologies, and intimidation and control. And the importance of that is a key effort of the Nazis to align Germany's arts and ideology in a policy known as Gliedwinstand. I probably said it wrong, but that's fine. Next. Between 1933 and beyond, the Nazis continued to gain more power and taking control of Germany. There was a fire at the Reichstag, which was a conspiracy against the communists. There was a suspect that was caught, but later that was disproved in 1946. The Enabling Act, which was later passed by Hitler himself, basically saying that he could bypass checks and balances, and that he could do whatever the heck he wants as his time as Chancellor of Germany. And Night of the Long Knives, where Hitler told his pals, Heinrich Himmler and Hermann Göring, to target his political opponents. On August 2nd, 1934, President Paul von Hindenburg died at the age of 87. Hitler later signed a law that took the position of Chancellor and President into one, and with that, Adolf Hitler declares himself the Führer of Nazi Germany, and with that, Germany became a totalitarian dictatorship. In the later years, between the years 1935 and 1938, Nazi Germany started expanding its military, which breaks the Treaty of Versailles. Nuremberg laws were passed, and the Nuremberg laws was a series of laws that stripped Jews of their rights and their freedoms, and territorial expansion by taking back the Saar regions, the Rhineland, and undoing the Treaty of Versailles. And now we're going to talk about its flag and its meanings. The red background for the flag, it was an idea of the social movement of the Nazi Party, and it was to appeal to workers and compete with communists and at rallies. The white circle, meaning that it was the national identity of the nationalist ideology of the Nazi Party. And finally, and most infamously, the black swastika. The black swastika represents the Aryan race and its mission to victory. Nazi propaganda. Behind me, this is examples of propaganda that they passed. What the propaganda talked about was they dehumanized Jews with grotesque cartoons and false accusations, glorifying Hitler as a god, and promoting the Aryan race, claiming that the Aryan race, which is whites, They believe that they are the superior race and that all other races are inferior. Behind me, on the left, is Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda. On the right is Julius Streicher, the publisher of Der Stürmer, which is an anti-Semitic newspaper. In 1938, March 12, 1938, the Nazis expanded their territories. First, they start with Austria. They annexed Austria as part of a pan-Germanism to unite ethnic Germans together. The outcome was Germany successfully annexed Austria and expanded land for Germany. And the consequences was violence erupted, wartime mobilization became an all-time high, and the implementation of Nazi policies in Austria as well. And on September 30th, 1938, came the Munich Agreement, where Nazi Germany wanted to annex the Sudetenland, which is an area by Czechoslovakia. Leaders from France, like Neville Chamberlain and Eobard de Lider, he's from France, they had to agree to Hitler's demands, and by that, Hitler gained more land for Nazi Germany in the Sudetenland. And this became an example for the Western powers being weak against Hitler and his demands for territorial expansion. Between November 9th and November 10th, 1938, came the Night of the Broken Glass, or Kristallnacht. Widespread violence happened on Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues, which killed around 91 to 400 Jews. 30,000 Jews were arrested and sent to concentration camps like Dachau, Buchenwald, and I don't know how to say the last one, but if someone knows, feel free to tell me. And the consequences of this was...
Sachsenhausen.
Thank you. The consequences was, it was a turning point for the Holocaust to take place, as violence and mass arrests represented the clear representation that the intent was to remove the Jews from German society. Then comes 1939, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, where Molotov and Joachim Ribbentrop, I think I got his name wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but the purpose was a 10-year non-aggression pact between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. The goals for Joseph Stalin was to, if they were to buy enough time to build a military against the Germans, if they were to fight a war on two fronts, and Hitler's goals was to avoid fighting like Germany did in World War I. Ultimately, the pact fell in 1941 when Operation Barbarossa happened, which we will get to in a second. On September 1st, 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland from the west. On September 17th, the Soviet Union invaded from the east as part of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The outcome, within 4 weeks, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union defeated Poland. And the consequences, England and France, they declared war on Germany, thus beginning World War II. And because of that, started the occupation of Germany, German occupation in Poland, and the implementation of...
Implementation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm speaking too fast, but...
Just
yeah,
big breath.
Yeah. Implementation of Nazi ideology in the occupied lands. For the remainder of 1939, Nazi Germany expanded its territories beyond German borders, which became part of the Greater German Empire. By then, in Poland, the Nazis implemented policies that required Jews to wear yellow stars to identify them easier and escalated anti-Semitism. The world was on edge at that point, as England, France, and other parts of the world wanted to see what was going to happen next between them and the Nazis. Now we go to 1940. The biggest events of 1940 were the invasion of France that took place on May 10th, 1940. France fell apart in June 1940, and that's bringing together Vichy France, which is where French soldiers, they collaborated with the Nazis. Take Philippe Pétain, for instance. He was a general for France, but collaborated with the Nazis. Then we go to the Battle of Britain, where the Nazis, the Luftwaffe, they were fighting the British in the air. as well as the formation of the Axis powers between Imperial Japan, Fascist Italy, and Nazi Germany on September 27, 1940. The Battle of Britain ends on October 31st, 1940, with a British victory, the Nazis' first ever setback, by the way, and on top of that, Operation Barbarossa is being planned in secret. 1941, this is huge. Nazi Germany invades Yugoslavia and Greece. They also invaded Crete, and their battleship, the Bismarck, sank the HMS Hood, which was the pride of the British Navy, which was later sunk a few days later by the British, though it was actually scuttled by her own crew. On June 22nd, 1941, Operation Barbarossa begins, breaking the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and opening another front for the Germans. The siege of Leningrad also happened on September 8th, 1941, and the Battle of Moscow escalates. Finally, on December 11th, Nazi Germany declared war on the United States, as Japan declared war on the US days earlier due to Pearl Harbor. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Operation Barbarossa failed, and that would be a major loss for the Germans.
And that's why you don't go to war in Russia in winter.
Yep. In 1942, we had the Wannsee Conference, where German leaders like Heinrich Himmler, Reinhard Heydrich, and Hermann Göring, they came together to come up with the final solution to the Jewish problem, thus beginning the Holocaust. At that rate, the Atlantic War was intensifying in the Atlantic Ocean, where ships, like merchant ships for the Allies, were being destroyed by German U-boats. Erwin Rommel, he took Tobruk in North Africa, and the Battle of Stalingrad begins. And by then, the Battle of Stalingrad escalates, and the Holocaust also escalates in addition to that. In 1943, the German forces, they withdrew from the Caucasus as they were losing, support and men, troops, and all like technology and weapons. The Battle of Stalingrad came to an end with the Soviets winning at a cost of 2 million lives, which is the deadliest battle in history. The Allies took back Tunisia, ending German occupation in North Africa. The battle first begins, but ultimately ends with a Soviet victory, sealing the fate of the Eastern Front and pushing the Nazis at a permanent retreat. By then, Italy also surrendered to the Allies on September 8, 1943. The Soviet Union retakes Smolensk, and the Holocaust reached its deadliest throughout the entirety of 1943. 1944 became pretty much the beginning of the end for the Nazis. The siege of Leningrad comes to an end with a Soviet victory. D-Day happens in France, opening the Western Front for the Allies. The Soviet Union, they liberate Minsk. Operation Valkyrie fails, and Adolf Hitler survives. Paris is liberated by the Allies. And the Germans, they attempt to launch a counteroffensive in the Battle of the Bulge against the American forces.
Can you explain what Operation Valkyrie was?
Basically, it was like Klaus von Stauffenberg, he was a German conspirator, and his idea was he wanted to kill Adolf Hitler and potentially cause a coup within the German government. When the bomb went off, he believed Hitler was dead and prematurely alerted German high command. When it was discovered that Hitler survived, he was captured and they were executed without trial. Alright, 1945, pretty much the end of the Nazis and their plans. At that rate, the Soviet Union, they were entering Eastern Prussia, which was the first time the Soviets, they entered German soil. Warsaw is liberated by the Soviet Union. The Battle of the Bulge ends with an Allied victory, by the way. The Soviet Union liberates Auschwitz, the deadliest Nazi concentration camp during the Holocaust. And the Allies capture Ludendorff, and the Allies and the Soviet Union, they start closing in on Berlin. Between April 16th and May 2nd, 1945, the Battle of Berlin begins. The main combatants were the Soviet Red Army on the offense and the Wehrmacht on defense. The Red Army's goal was to take Berlin from the Nazis, while the Wehrmacht's goal was to somehow take on the overwhelming Soviet forces. By then, the Soviet Union, they won the Battle of Berlin, sealing the fate of Nazi Germany. 2 days earlier, on April 28, 1945, Benito Mussolini was killed by Italian partisans. When Hitler realized that he came to a realization that, you know what, I don't want to get captured, I'm going to kill myself. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler committed suicide in his bunker using a Walther PPK pistol, while his wife, Eva Braun, who he had married the night before, took cyanide. He and Braun's bodies were buried by being burned in front of the the Führer bunker.
I thought they just sunk him in the ocean.
No, that was Osama bin Laden.
Oh, shit. I thought they were holding on to the body. Okay.
All right. Now the final days came in. I'll answer your question afterwards, all right? Between May 1st and May 7th, 1945, Berlin fell to the Soviet Union. And behind me, we have the flag of the Soviet flag on top of the Reichstag. At this rate, leadership in the Nazis just fell apart. Joseph Goebbels committed suicide, and SS leaders were doing the same as well. And the German army, they were surrendering at mass to the Allies with no chance to turn the tide of the war. You're good, you're good. Finally, after 5 years, 8 months, and 7 days, World War II in Europe formally comes to an end. Nazi Germany surrenders to the Allied forces, and behind me that's Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel signing the unconditional surrender of Germany. America, France, England, and the USSR divide Germany into 4 parts. Every May 8th, Europe celebrates Victory in Europe Day, which is largely due to Germany's surrendering to the Allied powers. By then, between 1945 and 1952, for 7 years, the Allies launched the denazification program to wipe out all forms of Nazi ideology from its media and politics. That also started the Cold War, which started with the Soviet Union at the east of Berlin, with the Berlin airlift, when the United States was giving aid to like, I would say, the immigrants and Germans. Next. Between 1945 and 1946 came the Nuremberg trials. The purpose of the trials was to hold Nazi officials accountable for their crimes for World War II. Thousands of films and documentations were discovered, and there was evidence to show that they were responsible for their actions. The key aspects was that most of the Nazi leadership was found guilty of their crimes, such as crimes against peace, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. And this shows that even individuals with power, they could be put on trial too. Behind me, I've listed all infamous Nazi figures who I'm going to name right here. We have Adolf Hitler, Führer of Nazi Germany; Julius Streicher, publisher of the anti-Semitic newspaper Der Stürmer; Arthur Seyss-Inquart, Governor General of occupied Netherlands; Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe; Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda; Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS; Reinhard Heydrich, head of the RSHA, and known to be the Butcher of Prague and the Man of the Iron Heart; Albert Speer, the architect of the Third Reich; Adolf Eichmann, a key role in the RSHA as well by doing mass deportation of Jews; Joseph Mengele, the Auschwitz doctor and angel of death; Amon Goeth, the butcher of Krakow in the Krakow concentration camp; Oskar Dillewanger, head of the Dillewanger Brigade; Wilhelm Keitel, de facto head of the German military; Martin Bormann, party secretary; and lastly, Rudolf Haas, another doctor at Auschwitz.
What a colorful cast of characters.
Yeah. Germany today, after 50 years of division and the Cold War, Germany in 1990 became Germany once more thanks to German reunification, and that ended pretty much the Cold War by then. Germany now makes the Holocaust and their regime a must in their history books to make sure mistakes like this never happens again. And Germany bans all forms of Nazi symbols unless it is for educational purposes. Germany today is now an ally of NATO and no longer represents the ideology that it once embraced 90 years earlier. The legacy of Nazi Germany, 1946 and abroad. Today, the world widely remembers Nazi Germany, widely for the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were killed, their horrific experiments, mass war crimes, and mass murder that was committed under the regime. After denazification, the Nuremberg trials, and Allied occupation, and the reunification of Germany, like I said earlier, Germany is now an ally of NATO, and today the Holocaust is a mandatory need for German education to acknowledge its past and make sure something like this doesn't happen again. And today, Nazi Germany is widely condemned as the Never Forget movement and the Never Again movement plays. Never Forget, representing the Holocaust. And books like The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich is documented based on Nazi Germany's rise and eventual fall from grace. And we are about to make sure that a regime like this never ever happens again, and we're not going to forget it. And that's it. Thank you all for listening. All right, you had a question, right?
No, not a question, more like a statement.
Yeah.
Like, I just remember Mussolini, like, attempted to flee, but then of course was captured, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And that's, something I thought was like kind of, interesting, because that just, like, I believe he like, tried to disguise himself as like, I don't know, like an interpreter. Yeah, some officer or something like that, yeah, lower rank. But then of course, they found out who, like, some partisans found out who he was, and then he was put on trial. And then also, like, a lot of, like, SS figures and just Nazi officials, I, like, remember, like, them fleeing to, like, South America and other places in the world.
Like that one dude that is like 130 years old that people thought was Hitler.
Yeah, Adolf Eichmann. He was one of them.
What a colorful cast! Like, look at this. This guy's the head of the SS.
Yeah.
So it's like a
He's a big
drunken dad you see at the bar in like Alabama. Look at this guy. I don't even know what's going on.
Like him, Oscar Dillebanger, he's not really talked
He
about.
looks really malnourished.
But like, if you look him up, his crimes are horrific.
It looks like he started smoking cigarettes at age.
Like, this is supposed to be the Aryan race? Really?
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
How old is this dude within like 100 feet of a school? I would not feel safe with him near my child. This is the guy that's doing the Auschwitz.
That was the propaganda.
Oh, this is the propaganda. Who was the? Was it?
That's Dr.
That is-
Auschwitz.
This is it.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't. This guy's something about those eyes, man. Look at him.
I mean,
Look at that 1,000-yard stare.
they're all Nazis, they gotta be creepy.
That's fair. They are Nazis. This guy doesn't look too bad. He's kind of round. It's kind of like Charles Barkley.
Anyway, thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Okay. Thank you, Vincent, for presenting.
Yep.